Hello, this is Mrs. Moslick, Geometry, Notes 10-8, Equations of Circles. Do the 2 warm-up questions. Remember, for warm-up number 2, try to do it by using 3 methods. Pause the video when you are done with both warm-ups. Play. Okay, warm-up number 1, who got 5? Good. For you who did not, just a reminder, if you are given coordinate points, it's best to use the distance formula. If you are given a graph, it's best to use the Pythagorean theorem. So let's go ahead and write down the full distance formula. The more you write down formulas, the more you remember them, and that is helpful for this class and for classes to come in mathematics. Okay, so we label the first coordinate point as x1, y1. We label the second coordinate point as x2, y2, and we plug in the particular numbers into each part of the equation. So we have -6 minus -2 squared plus 7 minus 4 quantity squared. We will simplify. And so we have d equals square root of the quantity. Make sure that you keep your parentheses, -4 squared plus 3 squared. So a -4 times -4 is 16. 16 plus 9 is 25. So keep that square root the whole time. Square root of 25 is the number 5. For warm-up number 2, it says to round to the nearest hundredth, and the answer should be 12.61. Let's see by doing it 3 ways. Okay, so 3 methods. I will start with the easiest method, and the easiest method is the law of cosines. Now, you wouldn't have to write this down, but because I am explaining this to you, I want to clarify the 3 ways of doing it. Now, the radius is 8, and we are given that the measure of arc CP is 104. Therefore, the central angle is also 104, and we want to find the length of line segment CP. This is perfect for law of cosines. You use law of cosines when you do not have a right triangle and you have or need 3 sides. And you identify your C pair, and your C pair is the side or angle you need, which is x, and the opposite angle. And then the other 2 sides are your A and B. So we'll write down the formula. C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cosine C. And so we have x squared equals 8 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times 8 times 8 times cosine of 104. Put this all in your calculator under the square root. So we put in square root of the quantity 8 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times 8 times 8 times cosine 104, close parentheses, enter. And we get 12.608. And because they say to round to the hundredth, we're going to just leave it at 12.61. The next method of solving this would be using the law of sines. And that's where you recognize that we have test and we have an isosceles triangle. 8, 8. And if this is 104, then I know that the base angles are the same. Let's just call them y for now. So we have 180 minus 104 and then divide by 2. So each of the base angles is 38. So I'm just going to erase those y's and just make them at 38 degrees. And now we're going to use law of sines. So I am going to write down the formula. Sine of angle A divided by its opposite side equals sine of angle B divided by its opposite side. Circle your the unknown you want and its opposite angle, and then circle another side and its opposite angle pair. So we have sine of 104 degrees over x equals sine of 38 divided by 8. Cross multiply x times sine of 38 equals 8 times sine of 104. Don't simplify until the very end. So go ahead and write this all out, and then we'll put it in one set of keystrokes in our calculator. 8 times sine 104, close parentheses, divided by sine of 38, close parentheses, enter, and we also get 12.608, which will round to 1 decimal place. Okay, those are two ways of doing this. The third way of doing it is to use the SOHCAHTOA right triangle trigonometry. So we need to create a right triangle. So we're going to draw in a right angle, and so we'll just look at the green triangle, and we'll call this side A and this side A. So A plus A is X. Half of 104 is 52 degrees. So we have this right triangle where the reference angle is 52 degrees. The opposite side is A, and the hypotenuse is 8. So we're going to be using sine of our reference angle, 52 degrees, equals the opposite side of A over the hypotenuse, which is 8. Write it as a proportion, cross multiply, so A equals 8 times sine of 52. Put that all in your calculator, and then double it, meaning X is A plus A, so X is 2A. So I'll put this in my calculator one time, so it's not going to be rounded until the very end. So 2 times 8 times sine of 52, enter, and again I get 12.608, so we'll round to the nearest hundredth. We get the same answer for 3 methods. This is a really good warm-up review of using the law of cosines, law of sines, and SOHCAHTOA. Okay, so equation of a circle. We are reviewing that. That comes from the Pythagorean theorem and from the distance formula. So just think of it as a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Again, an equation of a circle comes from, I have a center point, h comma k, and it's going to be the equidistant from any point on the circle. We'll call it x comma y. And so using the distance formula or Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where this a is the distance, big minus small, with the x's, and this vertical length is the distance of our y's, big minus small. So it just comes from a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Remember to take the opposite of what is in the parentheses to find the center point. So let's go ahead and do some problems on the back side. So moving to the back, number 1, write the equation of a circle with center -2, 4 and radius 3, then graph the circle. Well, let's go ahead and graph the circle right away. I like to start off with the center point being red, -2, 4. The center point is not a part of the circle. It just helps us describe where that circle is. The radius is 3. So from that center point, I'm going to go to the right by 3. I'll go back to the center, left by 3. Go back to the center, up by 3. Go back to the center, down by 3. And then connect the blue points as best as you can in a circular pattern. So we want to write the equation of the circle. So write down the general equation, x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared. Our center is h comma k, and the radius r is 3. So just replace those numbers with the h and k. So x minus the h is a -2, quantity squared, plus y minus k, k is 4, quantity squared equals r is 3. So now we will simplify it for our final answer. Minus a negative is plus, so x plus 2 quantity squared plus y minus 4 quantity squared equals 9, and that is our final answer. Let's go ahead and now do example 2. Graph the circle. The first thing you are going to do is write out the general equation of a circle, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So the radius is the opposite of what's being done. The radius, r squared equals 16. So take the square root of both sides, plus or minus, but the radius is just a positive value, so that is 4. The center is h comma k. So you take the opposite of what's being done in your equation with the x. So take the opposite of 3, that's negative 3, and the opposite of what's being done to the y, there's nothing being done. So the center is negative 3 comma 0. Then I just graph that in red because that's not your circle. The circle are all the points around that center point. So from that center point, I'm going to go to the right by 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll go back to the center point, left by 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll go back to the center point, up 1, 2, 3, 4, and back to the center point, down 1, 2, 3, 4. Connect all of those points in a circular pattern, and we have our graph of our circle. Last problem, example 3, is we want to write an equation of the circle. So again, just start off with your general equation, x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared. The center is h comma k. Oh, it doesn't give us the radius. So what do you think we should do here? You're right. A point that your circle passes through is just a random point, x comma y. So we are going to replace the x with negative 3, the h with 1, the y with negative 2, and the k with negative 2. But we don't know what the radius is, so we will figure that out. So we have a negative 4 quantity squared plus, I have a plus is from a minus a negative, so 0. Quantity squared equals r squared. So a negative 4 times negative 4 is 16 plus 0 is r squared. So our equation of the circle is, let's just write down the general equation. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Well, we already know what r squared is. That is 16. You don't have to take the square root of both sides because we just want r squared in the equation. And we're using the h comma k, so x minus 1 squared plus y minus a negative 2 squared. And now we're done. So in this problem, we had to actually come up with the radius. So what was the radius? We had to figure that out by plugging in the coordinate point x comma y into the x point and the y point.